Olive oil is that precious ingredient that we often add to our diet, believing that it is only beneficial. However, did you know that consuming it before bedtime can turn out to be a real threat to your health? In this video, we will reveal 10 fatal olive oil mistakes that you can make if you consume it before bedtime. These mistakes can not only disrupt your sleep, but can also lead to serious diseases such as cancer, heart attack, and bowel, liver, and pancreas problems. From unfortunate food combinations to unsafe storage and consumption practices, you'll be shocked to learn just how dangerous what we thought was healthy can be. Stay tuned to the end to protect your health and avoid these dangerous traps. This video will be extremely informative and helpful. So, if you want to become a master of your health, click like, and let's get started. Mistake 10. Using oil for intestinal problems, irritable bowel syndrome, colitis. Using olive oil at bedtime may seem like a healthy way to maintain your health to many. But for people with gut problems such as irritable bowel syndrome or inflammatory bowel disease, this ritual can turn into a real disaster. This is especially true for those who suffer from chronic digestive diseases. Irritable bowel syndrome, IBS, and inflammatory conditions such as colitis create a predisposition to unwanted reactions to fats, which can be exacerbated when the oil is used improperly. Olive oil, like any other fat, stimulates the gallbladder, which causes the active secretion of bile to digest fats. However, in people with irritable bowel syndrome or colitis, this can lead to increased symptoms such as abdominal pain, bloating, diarrhea, or even intestinal cramps. Research conducted by the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health showed that patients with chronic bowel disease are more sensitive to any changes in diet, especially when it comes to fats. Consuming fatty foods, including olive oil, at bedtime can provoke inflammation and bowel dysfunction. Moreover, due to the increased activity of the digestive system at night, the body does not rest properly, which can lead to more serious problems with sleep and overall health. The story of Anna Greffenstein from Germany, a 42-year-old woman, serves as a prime example of the consequences of improper olive oil use for IBS. Anna, hoping to improve her health, started consuming olive oil at night, unaware of her digestive problems. After a week, she noticed an increase in unpleasant symptoms. Frequent cramps and diarrhea became unbearable. Despite this, she continued to follow this ritual, which led to her hospitalization. Doctors diagnosed her with an exacerbation of irritable bowel syndrome, aggravated by the consumption of fat in the evening. She had to undergo prolonged treatment to stabilize her condition. People with irritable bowel syndrome or colitis should avoid consuming olive oil at bedtime, especially on an empty stomach. For those who do not want to eliminate this healthy oil from their diet completely, the best solution is to use it moderately throughout the day as part of a balanced diet, allowing the body to absorb fats more efficiently without stressing the digestive system. It is also important to pay attention to the quality of the oil. Cold-pressed olive oil should be preferred, as it contains fewer impurities that can irritate sensitive intestines. Research from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention also emphasizes the need for individualized nutrition for people with chronic diseases. To avoid serious complications, it's important to consider the specifics of your condition and consult with a gastroenterologist before introducing olive oil into your daily diet. Mistake 9. Taking olive oil with medications. One of the most common mistakes is consuming olive oil before bedtime in conjunction with taking medications. Many people do not realize that even such a seemingly beneficial product as olive oil can interact with medications, affecting their effectiveness and causing side effects. This is especially true with medications such as anticoagulants, blood thinners, and hypotensive medications aimed at lowering blood pressure. Consuming olive oil before bedtime can interfere with the effects of these medications and can lead to serious health consequences. Studies conducted by the National Institutes of Health have shown that fats found in foods, such as olive oil, can affect the rate at which drugs are absorbed in the gastrointestinal tract, which can lead to changes in their concentration in the blood. For example, when taking anticoagulants such as warfarin, co-administration of olive oil may reduce their effectiveness by increasing the risk of blood clots. On the other hand, hypotensive drugs can start to work too strongly, causing a sudden drop in blood pressure, which is especially dangerous at night when the body is weakened. Stephen Williams, a 58-year-old from the UK, faced dire consequences after taking olive oil in conjunction with anticoagulants. His doctor prescribed him warfarin after he suffered a thrombosis. However, wanting to improve his overall body condition, Stephen began taking olive oil regularly at bedtime. After a month, he began to feel weakness, dizziness, and pain in his legs. During an examination, it was discovered that the levels of the drug in his blood had decreased, causing new blood clots to form, threatening his life. As a result, Stephen had to undergo a second treatment and had to give up oil completely for the duration of his medication. If you are taking medications, especially anticoagulants or hypotensives, it is extremely important to consult your doctor before incorporating olive oil into your diet, especially before bedtime. It is best to use olive oil during the day in moderation when its effect on drug absorption can be controlled. The Food and Drug Administration recommends following the directions for each medication carefully and avoiding fatty foods at critical times of drug absorption. It is important to remember that the interaction of oils with drugs can vary depending on the specific composition of drugs and the condition of the body, so do not rely on universal recommendations, and it is better to get individual advice from a specialist. Mistake 8. Abuse of olive oil with a tendency to hypotension. Many people who appreciate olive oil for its beneficial properties do not even realize that its excessive use before bedtime can cause serious harm to the body in the presence of conditions such as hypotension, low blood pressure. Olive oil contains many healthy monounsaturated fats that can lower blood pressure, which is good for those with hypertension but dangerous for hypotensive people. Research conducted by the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health showed that regular consumption of olive oil, especially in significant amounts, helps dilate blood vessels and lower blood pressure. For hypotensive individuals, this exposure can be dangerous, especially at night when blood pressure already naturally decreases at rest. A drop in blood pressure can lead to dizziness, weakness, unconsciousness, and even cardiac arrest. Nocturnal episodes of sudden drops in blood pressure are particularly dangerous because they can occur during sleep when a person is not in control of their condition. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, hypotension is a condition that affects millions of people around the world, but many of them ignore the condition and continue to consume products that lower blood pressure even further. A drop in blood pressure below a safe level at night can trigger arrhythmia, cerebral ischemia, and other dangerous conditions. Lucinda Martinez, a 46-year-old woman from Mexico, had suffered from hypotension since her youth, but always believed that her love of olive oil only enhanced her health. Lucinda consumed about 40 milliliters of oil every night before bed, believing in its heart-healing properties. After a few months, she began to experience severe bouts of dizziness and weakness in the mornings, which led to one serious situation. One night, she passed out in her sleep because her blood pressure dropped too much. Doctors diagnosed her with a hypotonic crisis caused by an excess of monounsaturated fats in her diet. This case required hospitalization and a long recovery. To avoid such tragic consequences, people with hypotension should be especially cautious about consuming olive oil, especially in the evening. American Heart Association studies show that for hypotensive people, the safest time to consume olive oil is during the morning and afternoon hours, when the body is active and blood pressure is easier to control. In the evening and before bedtime, it is recommended to reduce consumption to minimal doses or eliminate oil from the diet altogether. In this way, you can avoid sudden drops in blood pressure and maintain heart and vascular health without risking your life. Mistake 7. Adding olive oil to a late dinner with heavy foods, especially fried foods. Consuming olive oil before bed, especially when combined with heavy fried foods, can cause unexpected and extremely dangerous consequences to your health. When you add this seemingly healthy oil to a late dinner, especially if it consists of fried foods, you create the perfect conditions for developing serious health conditions. On its own, olive oil has many health benefits due to its high content of monounsaturated fats and antioxidants. However, when it is consumed along with heavy fried foods before bedtime, it can create serious problems. According to researchers from the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health, eating fatty foods late at night slows digestion and increases the risk of gastroesophageal reflux disease, GERD. In this condition, acid from the stomach travels into the esophagus, causing burning and pain that can develop into more serious conditions. Scientific research conducted by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention confirms that eating late meals, especially fatty foods, can contribute to excess weight gain. Excess fat accumulation, especially in the abdominal area, is associated with an increased risk of diseases such as type 2 diabetes, hypertension, and cardiovascular disease. The effect of a late dinner on metabolism should not be overlooked. Foods that are high in fat and oil take longer to digest. At night, when metabolism slows down, this process becomes even more difficult. Studies conducted by the National Institutes of Health show that this digestion can increase the risk of stomach ulcers and even esophageal cancer. Consider a real-life example. Vincent Clark, a 50-year-old from Australia, often chose to eat late-night fried foods such as French fries and chicken wings, generously drizzled with olive oil. This became part of his habit, and over time he began to experience abdominal discomfort, heartburn, and frequent digestive upset. After consulting doctors, he was diagnosed with gastroesophageal reflux disease, which eventually led to more serious complications. To avoid such negative consequences, it is important to follow simple recommendations. First of all, try not to consume fatty and fried dishes before bedtime. Try to eat dinner at least 2 to 3 hours before bedtime to give your body time to digest your food. If you want to use olive oil in your evening menu, choose light and easily digestible meals, such as fresh vegetables or salads, and limit the amount of oil. It's also important to keep your diet balanced and avoid overeating to avoid putting extra strain on your digestive system. These simple changes to your diet can help you avoid potentially dangerous consequences and enjoy a healthy lifestyle. Mistake 6. Abusing olive oil for heart disease. Olive oil is widely recognized as beneficial for heart health due to its antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties. However, it is important to remember that excessive consumption of it, especially before bedtime, can have the opposite effect, causing worsening of the condition in people with cardiovascular disease. Although olive oil contains heart-healthy monounsaturated fatty acids, overuse of this product can have negative consequences for those who already suffer from heart disease. A study conducted by the American Heart Association found that high-fat consumption before bedtime can cause nighttime angina attacks, arrhythmias, and even increase the risk of thrombosis. During sleep, metabolism slows down, and eating a lot of oil can cause fat to accumulate in blood vessels, impairing blood flow and raising blood pressure. Another serious problem is oxidative stress, which is increased by high-fat intake. Long-term abuse of olive oil can raise cholesterol levels, which in turn stimulates the development of atherosclerosis, a dangerous disease in which arteries thicken and narrow, impeding blood flow. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention emphasize that cardiovascular disease remains the leading cause of death worldwide, and excessive olive oil consumption can only exacerbate these risks. An example is the story of Mark Wilson, a 62-year-old U.S. resident who has always considered olive oil to be the best way to keep his heart healthy. He consumed up to 100 milliliters of olive oil daily, including before bedtime. After a few months, he began to notice palpitations at night and shortness of breath. Mark didn't pay much attention to this, believing that his habit was healthy. One night, however, he suffered a heart attack. After hospitalization, doctors diagnosed him with hyperlipidemia and atherosclerosis, aggravated by high-fat intake. Specialists from the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health, after studying his case, concluded that the abuse of olive oil before bedtime was one of the reasons for the development of his disease. To prevent such dangerous consequences, it is important to remember that even healthy foods should be eaten in moderation. The American Heart Association recommends limiting daily olive oil consumption to 1 to 2 tablespoons, and it is best to do it in the first half of the day so that the body can effectively absorb the healthy fats. People with already diagnosed cardiovascular disease should be especially cautious and avoid consuming fats before bedtime to reduce stress on the heart and improve sleep quality. Mistake 5. Taking olive oil on an empty stomach for gastritis or ulcers. It seems that olive oil is one of those miraculous remedies that can bring incredible health benefits. However, its consumption on an empty stomach with gastritis or ulcer can have serious and even fatal consequences. It is necessary to carefully consider why it is so dangerous and what exactly are the risks associated with such a practice. Olive oil is certainly an excellent source of monounsaturated fats and antioxidants. However, if there is inflammation in the gastric mucosa, such as gastritis or ulcers, its consumption can aggravate the condition. According to the National Institutes of Health, consuming olive oil on an empty stomach can increase gastric juice secretion, which in turn leads to additional irritation of inflamed mucous membranes. Studies conducted by the American Heart Association show that while olive oil does reduce the risk of cardiovascular disease when used properly, consuming it for stomach ailments can cause a significant increase in symptoms. In particular, the acidity of the oil may contribute to increased pain and discomfort in patients with gastritis and ulcers. Data published by the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health confirm that olive oil, especially in large quantities and on an empty stomach, can lead to exacerbation of chronic gastric diseases such as ulcers and gastritis due to increased acid load on the stomach. Perhaps the most striking example relates to the story of Julia Clark, a 47-year-old woman from the UK. Julia suffered from stomach ulcers and believed that olive oil taken on an empty stomach would help improve her condition. She started each day with 50 milliliters of olive oil, believing it was good for her health. However, shortly after beginning this practice, she began experiencing severe abdominal pain, heartburn, and frequent bouts of nausea. As her condition worsened, Julia sought medical attention, and doctors at Sloan Kettering Cancer Center diagnosed an exacerbation of her ulcer and inflammation of her stomach mucosa. Their investigation revealed that the high acidity and irritating power of the oil only exacerbated her condition. To avoid negative effects, it is important to exercise caution and follow medical advice. The Food and Drug Administration recommends avoiding olive oil on an empty stomach, especially for people with gastritis or ulcers. Instead, it is better to include olive oil in your diet as part of a balanced meal to minimize irritation of the gastric mucosa. Regular consultations with your doctor will help you determine the safest way to consume oil and avoid exacerbations of existing conditions. Careful attention to your condition and compliance with the recommendations of specialists will help you avoid potentially fatal consequences and maintain the health of the stomach at the proper level. Mistake 4. Overeating olive oil when prone to gallstone disease. Olive oil, with its rich flavor and undeniable beneficial properties, can become a dangerous ally if its consumption is not properly controlled. This is especially true for people prone to Gallstone disease. Here, at first glance, it may seem that olive oil is a useful product, but overeating, especially in those who are predisposed to the formation of gallstones, can aggravate the problem and cause serious illness. Gallstone disease, or cholelithiasis, is a condition in which hard formations known as gallstones form in the gallbladder. These stones can block the passageways in the gallbladder, causing severe pain, inflammation, and potentially life-threatening complications. Consuming olive oil in excess can exacerbate this problem for several reasons. First of all, olive oil, while beneficial in moderation, is a high-calorie food containing a significant amount of fat. Sudden and excessive consumption of fats can cause stimulation of the gallbladder, leading to its contraction and increased workload. This can trigger the movement of existing gallstones or promote the formation of new ones. Research conducted by the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health found that high intake of fats, including vegetable fats such as olive oil, may increase the risk of gallstone formation. According to a study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, a high-fat, high-calorie diet is associated with an increased likelihood of gallstone formation, especially in people with a predisposition to the disease. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, more than 25 million people in the U.S. suffer from gallstone disease, and the condition is one of the leading causes of gallbladder surgery. Take, for example, the story of 56-year-old John Stevenson from the UK. John was an avid health food enthusiast and actively incorporated olive oil into his diet, believing it would help improve his health. However, his fascination turned into abuse. As a result of constant, excessive consumption of olive oil, John experienced an exacerbation of gallstone disease, which led to the need for emergency surgery to remove his gallbladder. To avoid problems associated with gallstone disease, it is important to remember to moderate your olive oil consumption, especially if you have a predisposition to the disease. Limiting the amount of olive oil in your diet to 1 to 2 tablespoons per day will help prevent overloading your gallbladder. In addition, regular medical checkups are key to maintaining a healthy gallbladder. Periodic stone screening and gallbladder monitoring will help detect potential problems in a timely manner. It is equally important to make sure your diet is balanced. Including a variety of foods in the diet and avoiding overload of fatty dishes will help to maintain health and prevent exacerbations of the disease. By following these guidelines, you can safely enjoy all the health benefits of olive oil without putting yourself at risk for serious illness. Mistake 3. Consuming oxidized olive oil. Risk of carcinogens. As evening falls and we get ready for bed, it's important to realize that our dietary choices can significantly affect our health. One such mistake is consuming oxidized olive oil, which can be a source of serious problems. Olive oil oxidation is a process in which the fats in the oil are broken down by oxygen, heat, and light. This process not only degrades the flavor of the oil, but also causes the formation of harmful substances. According to a study conducted by Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, oxidized olive oil may contain carcinogenic compounds such as aldehydes and lipid peroxides that can cause serious illnesses. The formation of these toxic substances can increase the risk of developing dangerous diseases such as cancer. Specifically, research conducted by the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health showed that consumption of oxidized fats is associated with an increased likelihood of cancer. These compounds can cause cell damage, which in turn can lead to mutations and tumor formation. An example of this is the story of John Smith from the UK, age 56. John was a passionate fan of olive oil and used it frequently in his diet, even when it started to have an unpleasant smell and taste. Eventually, his regular consumption of oxidized oil led to his diagnosis of colon cancer, which was the result of accumulated toxic exposure. To avoid the risks associated with consuming oxidized oil, you should follow a few simple guidelines. First, always check the freshness of the oil before use and avoid consuming it if it has an altered taste or odor. Store olive oil in a dark, cool place to slow down the oxidation process. It is also important to pay attention to the expiration date of the oil and not use it after it has expired. By following these simple rules, you will be able to enjoy the health benefits of olive oil without taking unnecessary risks. Mistake 2. Consuming olive oil if you have pancreatitis or liver problems. In the evening hours, as we seek to relax and prepare for sleep, it is important to remember that even healthy foods can become a source of danger if consumed incorrectly. One such mistake is consuming olive oil for pancreatitis or liver problems. Olive oil is undoubtedly a valuable component of the diet due to its beneficial properties, such as its content of monounsaturated fats and antioxidants. However, its consumption in certain health conditions can become a serious threat. Research conducted by the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health demonstrate that in people with pancreatitis or liver disease, consuming high amounts of fats, including olive oil, can worsen the condition and cause additional complications. Pancreatitis is an inflammation of the pancreas that can be caused by a variety of factors, including alcohol abuse and poor diet. In pancreatitis, the pancreas becomes extremely sensitive, and consumption of fats can lead to increased inflammation and pain. Similarly, in liver disease, such as fatty hepatosis or cirrhosis, the liver is already overloaded with processing fats and toxins. Adding additional fats, even healthy fats like olive oil, can increase the strain on this organ, contributing to further damage. Unfortunately, the story of James Hunter from the USA, aged 47, provides a prime example of this risk. James suffered from chronic pancreatitis and, despite doctors' advice to limit his fat intake, often added olive oil to his meals before bedtime. As a result, his condition worsened significantly, leading to the need for hospitalization and surgery. Doctors discovered that his inflammation had become more pronounced, and this was due to the excess fats in his diet. To avoid such problems, it is important to follow a few recommendations. First, if you have pancreatitis or liver disease, it is recommended to strictly limit the consumption of fats, including olive oil. A doctor or nutritionist should be consulted to determine the optimal amount of fats in the diet suitable for your condition. Second, try to include foods in your diet that support liver and pancreatic health, such as fresh fruits and vegetables, lean proteins, and whole grain products. Finally, regular medical checkups and following the advice of specialists can help monitor your condition and prevent potential complications. By following these precautions, you will be able to enjoy the benefits of olive oil without putting yourself at risk of aggravating your health and developing serious illnesses. Mistake 1. Ignoring the optimal dosage of olive oil for a particular health condition. In a world where every step can play a key role in maintaining health, it's not uncommon for us to make mistakes that seem like no big deal but can actually have serious consequences. One such mistake is ignoring the optimal dosage of olive oil depending on the health condition. With its recognized health benefits, such as its high concentration of antioxidants and monounsaturated fats, olive oil has become an essential part of many diets. However, its improper use, especially depending on your current health status, can cause unexpected and serious problems. According to the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health, improper use of olive oil can have a significant impact on health if individual characteristics and predispositions are not taken into account. For example, for people with certain medical conditions, such as heart disease or chronic inflammatory diseases, the optimal dose of olive oil may differ significantly from recommendations for healthy people. Studies conducted by the National Institutes of Health confirm that consuming olive oil in large amounts can lead to elevated cholesterol levels and other metabolic disturbances, especially in people with pre-existing cardiovascular disease. This can worsen the current condition and lead to even more serious consequences, such as the development of atherosclerosis or stroke. An example of such consequences is the story of Richard Smiths from the UK, age 52. Richard, having a predisposition to cardiovascular disease, actively added olive oil to his diet, believing that it would only bring benefits. However, he did not consider that the excessive amount of fat in his diet may have aggravated his condition. As a result, his cholesterol levels increased significantly, leading to frequent heart attacks and the need for urgent medical intervention. To avoid such mistakes, it is important to follow a few simple guidelines. First, if you have a medical condition or predisposition, you should consult a doctor or nutritionist to determine the optimal dose of olive oil suitable for your condition. Second, be sure to keep an eye on your overall nutritional balance, and don't forget to consider other sources of fats in your diet. Third, take into account individual differences, and don't forget to measure your health indicators so that you can adapt your diet to your needs. These steps will help you maximize the benefits of olive oil without putting yourself at risk of exacerbating existing health problems. In this video, we use data from several major U.S. organizations that play a key role in studying the biological processes of aging, finding ways to slow aging, and developing innovative technologies to extend life. Read more about them in the description below the video. What do you think about this? Do you agree with these statements? If there are any questions, ask them in the comments. More information on this topic can be found at the links in the description below this video and on our channel.
Subscribe and hit the bell for all notifications. Please like and share this video with your friends. Thanks to our sponsors for their support. I eagerly await your comments and encourage you to watch these useful videos.